Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
Most people who are near retirement haven't met with a financial advisor, and that could be a costly mistake. So today, Philip Statler is here to tell you about some of the questions to ask to help you find the right financial professional. We're so glad you're here with us today. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. And Philip, I know we have a lot to get to today. I hope you are doing great today. How are you?
Hey, doing well today. It's that time of year. We're staying pretty busy right now, but hey, it doesn't mean that we don't have time for more. And I'm excited about what's happening here in Central Florida.
Yeah.
And I think I was reading somewhere online. I was reading a paper, and they actually said that Florida was the second best state to minimize your taxes in retirement.
Well, hey, I mean, any surprise there that Florida is one of the best states to retire, really? I mean,
we got beat out by Alaska, and I'm trying to figure out warm versus cold. And I know those guys, if you live there, they got that oil money, so that might be a little bit better there.
Yeah.
Of course, we're still favored probably for the most part by retirees that they want to retire to Florida, but I can't believe we came in number 2 in that poll too.
Yeah, behind Maine. I mean, there's just something about, I guess, those rocky shores and colder weather for some people. But no surprise that overall, though, I think this was actually like a smartasset.com article. Florida was overall, though. It may have come in second in some of those categories, but because it placed so high in both of them, overall, one of the best places to retire. So, hey, no surprise there, right?
I mean, we're seeing people come to Highlands County from all directions. I mean, literally, people will retire down in Miami. They're tired of that rat race. They're coming up. You got people up north, tired of the cold. They're coming down. So, we've got them coming from all directions now.
So let's talk about how we help those folks get ready, because a recent survey of Americans age 55 and up, this survey is pretty revealing about our preparation for retirement as a nation. Only 27% of respondents say they're confident their savings will last. 60% do not feel like they have enough money saved. And 67% have not met with an advisor to create a retirement strategy. Sounds like something, Philip, that you can help us fix.
I'm looking at those numbers, Jen, and I got to say, I'm really kind of shocked at that last number. Only 67% have not met with an advisor.
Yeah.
That means less than 35% of the folks have met with advisors to try to get ready for retirement. And that's just scary to me that folks would take on this venture, this activity without having a plan in place. It just really just blows my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk a little bit about how the benefits here, how working with a financial professional can help you feel a little bit more confident about your retirement. Because I guess if you talked with someone and they can help you understand the numbers, you might not be as worried about how much you've saved, or you at least have a plan for how you'll catch back up.
Well, that's right. And so a lot of times, folks don't think they have enough money saved, and in reality, if you look at it, they're okay. Now, I'll give you that. The fact that sometimes the opposite is true, Jen. Sometimes people have not saved enough.
Right.
And they should not retire because they don't have enough saved up. But you don't know that until you go through the process.
Sure.
And I would encourage folks, look, if you are, 5 to 10 years out from retirement, man, you really need to start that process to see where you are and make sure that you're heading the right direction and get a plan in place. What do I need? If I don't know exactly what I need, how much do I need to have saved, and what do I need to do to be able to retire when I want to retire and enjoy retirement, not having to sweat the bills, every month and making sure that you just got money saved and can do what you want in retirement.
Walk us through your process, Philip, for helping somebody create that retirement income strategy.
Absolutely, Jen. I developed something called the core retirement design, And the premise of that really is to start out by, because I've seen it so often, is folks don't have the right amount of risk in their portfolio. And this core retirement design really helps you calculate the number one, the amount of risk you should have, and number two, figure out how much risk you do have and what needs to change so that those two things really line up. And then help you really kind of organize those goals and objectives and put things in perspective. Make sure that we've got a tax efficient plan in place. And then lastly, make sure we have an income plan. That in itself, Jen, will give people so much certainty in retirement because they'll know where the money's coming from each and every month for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, which is such an important thing to have a handle on. And Philip, for people who maybe they haven't been working with somebody yet, maybe they're not even quite sure how to go about finding somebody to help them with their retirement, I have a list of some of the questions that you might consider asking. So I want to take a little time and go through some of these with you and get your take on some of these questions and if they make sense or not. But the first one is, what does your financial plan include, and can you describe your financial planning process? How would you answer a couple of those questions?
So that really boils down to our core retirement design, right? Where we do look at the tax aspects of retirement and making sure that we've got a tax effective plan in place, knowing that right now that we are in some of the lowest tax brackets we're ever going to see. To look at that over your lifetime, how can we save taxes, not today, but for the rest of your lives? And, we don't give legal advice, but we sure know a lot about it. And we know where to point you to make sure you get those things taken care of and you've got everything ready to go in case something happens and you should need those documents.
What about this question? How do you help your clients, Philip? What are some of the areas where you feel like you're able to help your clients?
So a couple of things. I think one is making sure that we have that income plan in place so that we know where our income's going to come from. And then two is the tax aspect. Making sure that the amount of taxes we pay are as small as possible, not today, but for your lifetime. And the other thing I would say is that, we do more than just financial, right? We're here as our clients 411, meaning, hey, look, I got a question. It's not financial, but hey, I need some help finding an answer. Or a 911. Hey, I've got this emergency. It may not have to do with my finances, but we're here to help them through those processes.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. And let me just give the phone number really quickly, 863-285-3815, as we are talking through some of these questions to ask a potential financial advisor. If you want to talk to Philip a little bit more about some of this, if you want to pose some of these questions to him and start that conversation, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815 to get on Philip's calendar and get a little bit of his time to get some of your initial questions answered. That's 863-285-3815. Another question that you might consider asking a financial advisor or financial professional, Philip, what tools will you use to help me determine my goals clearly? What are some of the financial tools or things that you might use when you're helping people put together their strategy?
Well, we have a couple of things. One is, and one of the biggest things is really trying to determine, what risk somebody should have in their portfolio, how much risk. And so we've got some tools that help us analyze, one, how much risk they should have in their portfolio and kind of compare that to the amount of risk they do have in their current portfolio. And then we have several other tools that help us really look at being tax efficient. Does it make sense to do Roth conversions or charitable giving? We look at all those things when it comes to tax planning and putting that into perspective as we're heading into retirement. What things can we look at and how can we get ourselves in that lowest to zero tax bracket as close as we can anyway?
Philip, what about this question? I'm guessing a lot of people would have a question like this. What will you need from me throughout the process, and what is your responsiveness? I think sometimes people wonder, okay, but what do I have to do? What do I need to provide? How involved do I need to be?
So I tell folks, look, we need a lot of stuff to get it done, right? We copy of tax returns. We need a copy of statements. We need a balance sheet. But more important than all that stuff is we are not sitting here running everything. We try to use a collaborative approach so that, hey, we are partners in this planning process, that we want to make sure that we're transparent with you, you're transparent with us, that we know everything we need to know so that we put together the right plan for you so that you can have that retirement you always dreamed of. And I would say that's probably the biggest thing is we want to be collaborative with our clients and really have that give and take to determine what's going to meet their needs the best.
And finally, Philip, what about questions like how often will we meet to review and update the plan and some of those types of things? Because this isn't a one-time ordeal, Philip, where you help somebody put together their plan, you send them off into retirement and say, hey, see you in 30 years. That's not really how this works.
It's not a one and done, right? It's not like the people that sell you a product like an annuity or a CD, hey, look, it's done, you're over, we don't have to meet again. It's not that at all. We're there. Most of our clients, we meet at least once a year, a lot of times twice a year. And then the other part of that is that we're available, right? If hey, look, we're only scheduled to meet once or twice a year, but you need something, we're here. We're here for that phone consultation to make sure that we answer your questions and to make sure that you're comfortable with what's happening, where you are, and what the next steps are. That's exactly, these questions you've asked today really kind of lead us into that core retirement design process. So many times folks just don't have a plan. And that's the biggest problem I see when I sit down with folks is above anything else, they just don't have a plan in place. And that's, again, why we put together this core retirement design. Look, if you're already retired, and I mean like you retired yesterday or you retired 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, that's a sweet spot. You need to make sure you have a plan in place. Or you're the other end of the spectrum. You're 5 to 10 years out from retirement. Now's the time to be getting all your ducks in a row and make sure you're ready for that day to retire. Give us a call and let's walk through our core retirement design analysis. That's 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Folks, don't delay. Don't procrastinate. It's your retirement we're talking about here. That number again, 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. More insights from Philip when we return.
In times of volatility, the only wrong move is not making one. Call Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services today and find out where you currently stand with your portfolio. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Remember that first paycheck when you started working all those years ago and you looked at the net amount and thought, whoa, what happened here? Well, it could be this way with your retirement accounts. You know how much you've saved, but if you haven't planned for Uncle Sam, you could come up short in retirement. With tax laws constantly changing, there's a lot you need to know to make sure you're not paying more than your fair share. Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Team have helped hundreds of families plan for retirement for more than 20 years. They'll help you create a plan that shows you how taxes could affect you now and in the future. Set up a visit with Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial. Just give them a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Make sure you know how these changes could affect you so you can avoid some of those whoa moments in retirement. Call 863-285-3815. Firm offers insurance services but may not give tax advice. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your R&D, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to check him out online and learn a little bit more. And Philip, we're going to have a little fun here over the next couple segments talking about ways to create what we're going to call your 5-star retirement plan. And you think about that star rating system, right? We all know what a 5-star luxury resort might look like. Lush greenery, scenic views, top-notch customer service, and then picture a run-of-the-mill roadside motel. Probably isn't going to have that 5-star rating because something's missing. And we want to help you make sure that you have all 5 stars for your retirement. And Philip, I'm sure we've all been there. If we haven't experienced it ourselves, we've heard horror stories of the difference between the 1-star roadside motel and the 5-star resort. I mean, we've experienced probably both, and we just know something's missing from that. From the, the 1-star.
Jen, it's really disappointing when you think you're staying at a 4 or 5-star resort and you get 3-star service.
Yeah, it is disappointing, and we all know. Like I said, we've all experienced this. So we're calling them stars. We're just kind of having fun with this. What we're really talking about would be the 5 key components of a comprehensive retirement plan. But again, we all understand the 5-star rating system, so that's why we're kind of taking this approach today. Tell me, what are the 5 main points for that if you want your retirement plan to have what we're calling that 5-star rating?
So I think that when we look at a 5-star rating for a retirement, we need to look at things like we need to have a reliable income plan because income is going to be important in retirement. We need to have a wealth management strategy, an actual strategy, not just a bunch of products or a bunch of accounts that we don't really understand what they're doing for us. We need a tax efficient strategy. We don't want to pay too much in taxes. And then we need a plan to address health care, because that's going to be a continued growing concern for retirees. And then lastly, the 5th point is you need to have a proper estate planning strategy in place to make sure that you've got all of those type of things covered. Like you said, we call them stars, but they're really those 5 key components to make sure that you have in place a comprehensive retirement plan.
So let's talk a little bit about that first star that you talked about, that first point, the income plan. What's the first step for getting that in place? So we are starting with that first star of our 5-star plan.
So I think when we look at that, Jen, when we look at an income plan, people think of how much income can I take out? Well, that's kind of putting the cart before the horse, right? We need to know first, how much income do we need? Not how much will it produce, but how much do we need? And to do that, we have to figure out what that gap is, right? So we pretty much know in retirement, you're going to get your Social Security. Maybe you're lucky enough that you get a pension. And then we need to put together a budget so we know here's how much we need. So let's just say that, hey, we get $1,500 a month from Social Security. We're fortunate enough we're going to have a $1,000 pension. So we got $2,500 coming in every month. Now, we need $3,000. So we got a $5,000 gap. That's what we have to plan for. That's what we have to devise a plan to make sure we're covered. So that's really the starting point right there, is knowing how much you really need. And then from there, you kind of build the plan.
And let's talk about just some of the tools for how we generate income in retirement, because so often, Philip, during our working years, we're focused on saving, we're building up that savings. We have to do something with it in order to generate income from it. So let's just talk a little bit about that part. How do we actually generate that income? How do we actually take the income out of our savings?
You're right, Jen. I mean, so often, folks have worked so long putting money into their 401ks or their retirement accounts, and they're in growth mode. All they want to do is accumulate money. They want to grow it. The difference is that when we get ready to retire, probably 5 years out from retirement, we need to flip a switch and we need to think of things differently. We need to think of, okay, now I need to preserve what I have so that it will create the income I'm going to need. So what tools do we have? Well, we can use a dividend portfolio. We need a growth portfolio. We need a portfolio that's going to create some income. that we can take income out of. We need some safety, and sometimes in safety, we want to use some annuities so that we know that we've got some protection there. And annuities have their pluses and minuses, and you need to understand what those are before you start using things like that. Because there's 4 different types of annuities out there. So you need to understand what you have, what you're using, and what it can do for you. Folks, this is why I created the Core Retirement Design, to help folks design the retirement they always dreamed of. Give us a call at 863-285-3815, and let's get on the phone together and let's make sure that you are on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. Again, that number is 863-285-3815. I'd love the opportunity to have a conversation about your retirement planning. Again, that number is 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and we are walking through and talking through creating that 5-star retirement plan, just having some fun playing off of the 5-star rating system. What we're really talking about are the 5 main components of a comprehensive plan. And Philip, you talked a little bit about having both an income plan and a wealth management strategy. Explain what the difference is between those two things.
So an income plan, Jen, is actually a document, a plan that says, okay, here's what I have. Here's how I've got it allocated into these different buckets, different strategies. And here's where my money is going to come from as we walk through our retirement. So we know the first 7 years, here's where our money's coming from. The next 5 to 7 years and on down the line, we know which bucket of money our money's coming from to provide that income. So that's an income plan. The wealth management strategy is, how do we invest those dollars? How much do we have in an emergency fund? How much do we have in a conservative or moderately conservative portfolio that may provide us some cash flow? How much do we have in annuities? How much do we have in a growth bucket? That's the management style of those investments. And that determines what those funds are specifically designed to do for you. Growth, we want a growth bucket to help keep up with inflation and those type of things. So that's the difference. And so many people that I meet with, they have a lot of stuff. They have a lot of accounts and annuities and products. The problem is they don't have a plan or a strategy of how they're all going to work together. And that's a big issue when we hit retirement.
Talk a little bit about when it comes to how much growth we have. Once you get into retirement, how much should you have still invested in the market? How much growth should you still be shooting for at that point?
That's a loaded question, Jack.
That's why I asked.
So it depends, right? It depends on several factors. The first factor is what's somebody's age, right? I mean, we like to look at the rule of 100, not as a set fast, this is what it's got to be, but as a guideline. We want to look at that first to make sure that we're not way out of balance. And the rule of the 100 is you take 100 minus your age. If you're 65, then you want 35% of your portfolio in the markets at risk. And that's just a starting point. It may be that you have 45 or 50% in the market. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. The next thing we need to look at is, what is your risk tolerance? What does that look like? And so we walk through a whole process of determining what is your risk number and how does that equate, number one, to your current portfolio, and number two, the portfolio we're going to build for you. And so that's the second part. And if you take those two things combined, then that gets us a pretty good idea how much money we need to have in the market going forward.
And let's just talk a little bit about, given the world that we live in today, why it's so important for us to have at least part of our money to keep growing in retirement. What are some of the issues that a little bit of growth can help address?
Well, I know this is going to seem counterintuitive, especially since, our inflation rate this last week or two was announced to be 9.1%, I think. And so we need something that's going to help keep up with inflation. And that's what the market part does. It will help us keep up with inflation over time. It may be a year that it doesn't do that. It may be a couple years in there it doesn't do that. But over a 10, 15-year period of time, that part that's in the growth bucket is going to do better than inflation is going to do over that time period. So that's why we want, even if you're 90 years old, we want a small little sliver in the market. Not big, but at least a small sliver, because that's what's going to provide us some growth to help offset what inflation does. So folks, listen, that's why we developed our core retirement design, to help people put together the plan they need to make sure that the amount of risk they have in their current portfolio lines up with the amount of risk they can really and truly handle in their current portfolio. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement design phone consultation. It's that simple, folks. It's no heated pressure. It's just a 30-minute phone conversation to make sure that you're on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. I want to help coach you into that retirement. Give me a call at 863-285-3815, and let's determine if you're on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. It's that simple. Give us a call again, 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. That number one more time, 863-285-3815. Now, when you plan a vacation, you know how to research flights and hotels and how to look for savings, right? You want the most bang for your buck. So how do you do the same thing for your retirement? More on how to create that 5-star retirement plan coming up next.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
You can't see it, but you sure can feel it. The economy is struggling right now. Do you know how it might affect your retirement? Some retirement plans take into account economic downturns, stock market dips, interest rate fluctuations. Does yours? Take charge of your retirement by calling Philip Statler at 863-285-3815. Philip and his team at Statler Financial have been helping families prepare for retirement for over 20 years. They will help address the current economic situation and help you create a retirement plan designed to give you the confidence to move forward. Opportunities can exist regardless of economic conditions. Call the team, Philip Statler with Statler Financial at 863-285-3815 and find out ways you can prepare now for your retirement. Call 863-285-3815. Call them now. Schedule a visit. Let's get started. Firm offers insurance services. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler and co-host Jen Rezac.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. As we get back into it, if you hear something you'd like to get some answers on, 863-285-3815 is the number to call. Again, that's 863-285-3815. Now, when you plan a vacation, you all probably know how to research flights and hotels and where to look for some savings, and you want the most bang for your buck. And we know how to do that with certain things, Philip, but we want to talk about that now. How do we make sure we are getting the most bang for our buck with our retirement savings, and we are taking steps to preserve our savings? And one of those areas where we can do that is by being what we call tax efficient. So let's talk a little bit about how we can do that. I think a good place to start is tell us the difference between tax planning and tax preparation.
So here's the deal. Tax preparation is pretty easy, right? it's history, right? So whatever happened last year gets put on a tax return because you get all these documents that says, here's your income, and that gets put on tax return and we file it. That's preparing your taxes. Not much planning at all in that process, because to plan, you have to start before the end of the year, because otherwise it's history, right? And you've gone past the opportunity to do any kind of planning. So tax planning is when you sit down halfway through the year and you start looking at what's happened so far and what you anticipate happening in the rest of the year, and then probably sitting down again in like November, December, first part of December. Okay, where are we at? How close are we? What things can we do now to reduce our taxes for the year? Do we need to get some charitable contributions? Do we need to up our contributions to our retirement plan? What can we do to reduce them? That's planning. Preparation is the act of putting all that information on the return and getting it filed with Internal Revenue Service.
So, and that's why I wanted to talk about this, is understanding the difference between these two, because when it comes to tax planning, the goal here is to be tax efficient so your clients can spend more of their retirement dollars the way they want to, rather than having to overpay, in taxes in retirement. So talk a little bit about that approach and that goal in mind for your clients.
So I think one thing you have to remember is that we are in a very low tax environment today. We know that no matter what happens, that in 2026, the tax rates are going to go up. They're going to go up to what they were prior to the Trump tax reductions. And so we already know that the 10% rate's not going to change, but the 12% is going to go back to 15. And then we're going to go from the 20 to the 22 to 25. So we already know that we're going to see an increase in our tax rates. The question becomes, what can we do today to be prepared for that and put ourselves in the best possible situation we can to reduce taxes as much as possible? And so that's an area that we want to look at. We want to be cognizant of that issue. So many people head into retirement, they don't even think about taxes. As a matter of fact, a lot of people think they're retired, that they become tax exempt. And that just doesn't happen. As long as you have income coming in, you've got to pay some taxes. And but we want to be as tax efficient as possible and make sure that we're doing what we can to plan for those taxes. And just part of the issue is just having a plan, right? That's always been kind of the deal. And again, that's part of our whole process that we go through. And our core retirement design, to help you design the retirement you always dreamed of, is looking at those things. Does it make sense to do Roth conversions today? I don't know until we run the numbers and you and I look at them and say, maybe it doesn't make sense, but maybe it does make sense. But if you don't do the exercise, you don't know the answer. That's, again, why we do the core retirement design. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 and let's you and I have a conversation about what does the core retirement design look like for you? Are you on the right path, the right track? Are you going to get to where you want to be in the next 5 or 10 years and ready for retirement? Again, give us a call, 863-285-3815. I'd love to spend 30 minutes with you. Make sure you're doing the right things to get to where you want to be.
That number again, 863-285-3815 to reach Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. We've got a couple more stars in our 5-star retirement plan to get to. And again, we're calling them stars. We're having fun playing off of the 5-star rating system. What we really mean are the key components to having a comprehensive plan that would include an income strategy, an investment strategy, a strategy to be tax efficient, which we just talked about. The next one involves healthcare. And Philip, this is a big star that we don't want to overlook here. According to Fidelity, a 65-year-old couple retiring in 2022 can expect to pay an estimated $315,000 after taxes for healthcare and retirement. That does not include long-term care. That is out of pocket. that is out-of-pocket costs. Are retirees even aware of how steep that estimate is, and how do you help somebody prepare for that?
And that's a pretty big jump from what it was last year when they did the same report, because Fidelity's good about that. They run this report pretty much every year, updating those numbers of what it's going to be for a couple 65, what it's going to take for them to provide health care coverage and cost over their remaining years. And so what's that really based on? Well, it's based on 65 years old starting with. It's based on some life expectancy. And I'm not sure what they're using for life expectancy, but I got to think it's got to be 20, 25 years. And so you look at that number, that's it's a big number. It catches your attention, which is what it's designed to do. But you break that down over 20, 25 years, it's still a big number, Jen.
Yeah, for sure.
I did the math. And I thought, maybe it's not too big, but you take that 315 over 25 years, I think you're still at like 12 grand a year, a little over 12 grand a year.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's a big number, and we don't think about that. And so we need to remember when we're putting together that income plan that, hey, we're going to have this healthcare cost, and we know healthcare seems to be going up at a faster pace, maybe not today, but in general, it's going up at a faster pace than just regular inflation. And so we need to realize that and make allowances for that within our income planning process.
Something that we certainly want to think about. And again, when I mention that number, it does not include the cost of long-term care. And you want to talk about something that's not cheap, Philip. Long-term care, if this is something that you need for an extended period, it is very costly. What are some of the options for addressing that as part of our 5-star retirement plan?
Obviously, you can always go out and buy long-term care insurance. Well, I say
Right.
always, as long as you're healthy enough to qualify to buy long-term care insurance. The downside is it's not cheap. It's relatively expensive, and it doesn't. From now, you can hardly afford a lifetime policy. So now policies are 3-year, 5-year, that type of thing as far as benefits to be paid out. So, but that's one option, right? You can get long-term care insurance. The other option is there are annuities that provide long-term care benefits. There's life insurance that provides some long-term care riders that you can get that effectively help offset some of that cost. There's other planning opportunities that you can do, Medicaid, Medicare, those type of things that play into that whole scenario of long-term care. And when we think of long-term care, a lot of times we think of just anything that is care outside the home, whether that's assisted living or an actual nursing home. And I got to tell you, Jen, there's a huge difference in cost, right? So typically right now, at least in our area of the world, you can get assisted living for probably $2,500 to $3,500 a month, which is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of money, but that's nothing compared to nursing home cost. Nursing home, we're talking about probably $9,000, maybe even $10,000 a month to pay for nursing home care. Right. And so, there are planning opportunities there. The big thing is having the ability to have the team available that can help you go through that process. And that's what we have. We put together a team that can help us deal with our clients when they reach that situation.
And let's talk about one last piece here before we run out of time here before our next break, Philip. How does estate planning, estate legacy planning, acknowledging your inheritance goals, let's talk about how that fits into what we're calling our 5-star retirement plan.
Well, I think that it is important that folks have an estate plan in place. And of course, how complex it is going to depend upon what your net worth is and how many folks we're leaving money to. It gets a little bit more complicated when we have a second marriage, right? With kids on both sides, it can become a little bit more complicated. But the fact is, you need to sit down with an attorney and develop your plan to make sure that what you want to have happen happens when you pass away. So often I sit down with folks after somebody's passed away and things didn't go to where they thought they were supposed to go because somebody didn't get back into the attorney to make a change. So it's important that we have those things in place. I can't tell you how important it is to have power of attorneys in place so that somebody can take care of you when you can't take care of yourself. To me, it becomes one of the most important documents you can have because you're still alive, right? You need somebody to take care of you. And so that's important. The other stuff is too, but tell people that you've passed away, what happens, right? You're not going to be in pain because of it. So, but that's why I think those estate planning documents are so important, and making sure that you're doing what you want to do, you're leaving what you want to leave to the people you want to leave it to.
Do a quick recap here before our next break. The 5 key components of that 5-star retirement plan that we've been talking about today include the reliable income plan, wealth management strategy, tax efficient strategy, a plan to address health care, and also your estate planning strategy. Let's talk about how you help build a retirement plan that incorporates all of those parts, and how do we get started on that with you today?
So I think that those things are all part of our process to develop the plan. Our core retirement design starts by analyzing where you are today, looking at where you need to be down the road, and putting together that income plan to get you there. The wealth management strategy, we talk about that when we put together the income plan. Here's what it looks like. Here's why we're using the different buckets we're using. And then in that, again, everything's based on that income plan, except for maybe the estate planning part of it. Everything else is kind of built into that whole process of designing that income plan. And so that's all incorporated into that whole planning process. Hey folks, listen, to get started, it's simple. It's a 30-minute phone consultation. Nothing crazy out of your day. We can get on the phone, spend 30 minutes just to see if you're on the right path to get to where you want to be. Walk through some key components to make sure that you're on the path for the retirement you always dreamed of. It's that simple. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement phone consultation. Again, that number is 863-285-3815. Hey, don't let time be a hindrance. Give us a call. Short time period. We can make sure you're doing the right things to have the retirement you always dreamed of. Give us a call again, 863-285-3815.
Coming up next, there are so many decisions you have to weigh heading into retirement, and in our retirement yay or nay segment, the pros and cons of planning your RV retirement. Yay or nay? That's coming up next. Stay with us.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Philip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. Remember that first paycheck when you started working all those years ago and you looked at the net amount and thought, whoa, what happened here? Well, it could be this way with your retirement accounts. You know how much you've saved, but if you haven't planned for Uncle Sam, you could come up short in retirement. With tax laws constantly changing, there's a lot you need to know to make sure you're not paying more than your fair share. Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Team have helped hundreds of families plan for retirement for more than 20 years. They'll help you create a plan that shows you how taxes could affect you now and in the future. Set up a visit with Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial. Just give them a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Make sure you know how these changes could affect you so you can avoid some of those whoa moments in retirement. Call 863-285-3815. Firm offers insurance services but may not give tax advice. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. You know, there are so many big decisions you have to weigh as you head into retirement. And we like to take one of those big decisions and really dive into the pros and cons. We call this retirement yay or nay. This is always fun to take a big issue, weigh the upside and the downside, and then make our decision yay or nay. And Philip, this week's topic, planning your RV retirement. I don't know. What do you think about that one?
You know, I will say that I've got some clients and some friends that have retired and have gone out and bought the RV and done the thing, traveling around. I don't know that I have a whole lot that actually live in their RV.
Sure.
But they spend a good time in their RV out and about.
People do it.
I had one client that did take off, but he came back 3 months later.
So not quite totally buying in there to the RV retirement, but certainly something that people do. You know, my aunt and uncle got an RV, and they use it to host what they call Grammy Camp, and they keep it parked out at the lake. They have the grandkids come out. They host their little Grammy camp. The grandkids come out and camp, and then everybody goes back home. So, you know, there's another idea of what you can do with your RV. And you got grandkids, Grammy camp. Just something to think about. All right, so here's what we're going to do, Philip. We're going to go through some of the possible pros and cons of buying an RV or taking it to that extreme, even living in an RV in retirement. I don't know how many people really want to go that far, but at least having one, there are some pros and cons, some things to think about. So, possible pros here. You could live on a modest budget since those RV lots and campsites are relatively cheap to use. We should put a little asterisk there. That is after the initial investment of buying the RV.
Yeah, that's expensive.
That would probably go under con number one. So we'll get to that one in a minute here on the negatives here. Another possible pro, buy less stuff because you have limited storage space. So kind of forces you to hold off on other impulse purchases. You can take the road less traveled in an RV. You can go out, see a lot of things, especially you think about, Philip, if you want to hit some of those big national parks out west, you can spend some time out there and hit some of those things. And you can potentially visit more family and friends, but you don't have to have them make up the guest room. You can hang out in the driveway. I don't know if that's a pro or con. I put it on the pros. That can be a con. I don't know. So those are the pros. I don't know. What do you think of those?
I think there's some legitimacy there.
Sure.
About those pros. And I see two things. One, RV, I think most people think of the one you drive, right?
Yes.
But I think of RV also as, you got the big fifth wheel.
Oh, sure.
So, so that's, I've got clients that do that. And so I think that this whole travel, live out of a big something other than a house, right? That kind of makes a difference. It's a different style of living. And I think that these things are true. Yeah, to me, is how long, I know that's probably one of the cons, right? I think it would be neat to go see stuff and go out and do that kind of thing. I don't know that I could live in one.
Yeah, that's the great thing about what you do, Philip, is there are very few wrong answers for the people that you help, right? Whether you want to live in an RV or just do something part-time like what you were just talking about, downsize from your home into an apartment or condo, or keep your current house until the day you die. There's no wrong choice. Really, the only wrong answer, Philip, is failing to put any financial plans in place for your retirement or to make decisions without going through and weighing all the pros and cons like what we're talking about. That's the wrong thing to do. But other than that, there's no wrong answers.
No, there's not. But it's planning, right? So just some key points that I think people need to remember is that if you're thinking about this, if that's something that you're seriously thinking about, then, hey, look, you need to know where money's going to come from to pay for that RV, because you don't want to take it out of your retirement accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Because
right,
you're going to have to pay tax on all that money. And let's face it, if you buy a fifth wheel, I mean, those things are $75,000 to $125,000 just for a fifth wheel. And then you got to buy the truck to pull it. And then if you buy a motorhome, you're looking at anywhere from probably $40,000 to $500,000. So you need to plan ahead. But am I going to be able to sell my house with no mortgage on it? Because that's what you're going to have no mortgage, and then use those proceeds to buy the RV. So you got to plan this out. You can't just hit retirement day and say, okay, I'm going to go buy an RV without really thinking through the process, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's what we're here for. That's what we help people do, is really plan out that retirement. What are we going to do? What's on your bucket list? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want your money to do for you in retirement? And because money's just a tool, right? It's not going to get you anything if you don't use it properly. And so it's a tool. We have to put that tool to work in order to accomplish what we want to accomplish in retirement. And that's really what I think our role is as a retirement coach, is to really coach people. And it is helpful, really helpful, if you start before you retire. Like if you start coaching a couple years out, then it's a little easier when game day gets here.
Right. Yeah. Just thinking about these things ahead of time, starting to put those plans in place early enough so you're not scrambling to react. It's been fun to talk about the whole idea of the RV retirement. So let me ask you really quickly before we start to wrap this up. We went through the pros and cons for you yourself, Philip. Yay or nay on the RV retirement idea? What do you think?
I could not live permanently in an RV.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. Now, would I like to have one to take off and go a month or 2 months out west? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But I don't want to give up my house.
Right. Yeah, that's a little extreme.
Well,
going all the way in.
People don't think about, that's our gathering spot, right?
Yeah.
Everybody comes home.
Where do you get to gather the kids, the grandkids? Right.
If you don't have a home, where are you going to gather everybody?
I know. My husband always talks about retiring to one of those like tiny homes. And I'm like, where will my dining room table go in a tiny, we'd have to have a separate one just for the dining room table. But all right. But again, some fun to talk about the whole idea of the RV retirement. Really, it's a metaphor for all those big decisions that you need to be making for your retirement in general. And Philip, as we've been saying here, whether or not you like the idea of an RV retirement, the only wrong answer here is not planning. And you want to take the same approach that we just did talking about RV retirement, weighing the pros and cons, doing the research, understanding what's going on. You need to do that about your whole retirement. That is really what we're getting at here. So as we close out the show today, what would you like to leave us with?
You're absolutely right. That is the bottom line. That's why for our clients, we want to be their 911, their 411. Something emergency pops up, we want to be there for them to help them through that process, whatever it may be, whether it's financial or other, right? We may not have the answers, but we can point them in the right direction. Same thing with a 411. We want to be there for their information. Again, we may not have the answers, but we'll figure out how to find them and point them in the right direction. All this goes to point to what we developed and designed, the core retirement design, so that folks can design the retirement they always dreamed of. To get started, it's simple. All you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
You've been listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining us today. Be sure to tune in again next week for more insights from Philip, and we'll talk to you then.
In times of volatility, the only wrong move is not making one. Call Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services today and find out where you currently stand with your portfolio. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.